parent child who deserved no explanation as I was bounced out the door? Steve knew, and I knew, and certainly Donald knew, that I'd been one of the very few grown-ups on this wild ride of a campaign. The president-elect and I had an excellent relationship, and now I was being banished. No warning and no fingerprints. Just when the time came to execute our carefully crafted 30-volume transition plan. Was this where my friendship with the soon-to-be president was going to crash and burn? I was about to find out. Okay, that's fine, I told Steve as I stood to leave. By the way, I added, just so you know, since you won't tell me anything, I'm going to have to assume it was your decision. You're the one conveying it. Now I'm going to go downstairs to that scrum of reporters in the lobby and tell them I was just fired by Steve Bannon. That it was Steve Bannon's decision and Steve Bannon's alone. And that's not all I'll say. You can count on the fact that I'll have a lot to say. Then you can deal with all the incoming and explain everything yourself. Good to see you. The reporters in the lobby would eat this stuff up. I was certain of that. If there was anything I'd learned from 2 decades in New Jersey politics and as a federal prosecutor, it's that reporters like nothing more than a life-or-death feud. 2 minutes from now, Steve's cell phone was going to explode. Suddenly, Steve changed his tune. No, I heard him say. Not quite as unequivocally as before. Wait a second. You can't walk out and do that. Oh, yeah, I can, I told him. I'm no longer associated with this place. I'm not allowed in the building. You made your decision, now I'm making mine. Governor, Steve pleaded, sit down and let's talk about it. What do we have to talk about, I asked, glancing at the open door. I should leave. I knew this couldn't be Donald's idea. He and I had been there for each other, time and again. He said to me as far back as Labor Day, Chris, you and I are so smart and we've known each other for so long. We could do the whole transition together if we just leave the victory party 2 hours early. I loved the self-confidence and appreciated the compliment, but no, I told him, we need to do this right. Now that the election was over and victory was ours, I was even more grateful that I talked him down from his just wing it approach. It made no sense for Donald Trump, who had never held public office, to sever his relationship with one of the few people around him who'd actually run an executive branch of government. How did that serve him? Of course it didn't. And now the momentum in Steve Bannon's office seemed to be shifting my way. No, Steve said, I want to talk to you about this. Well, I want to know who fired me. Because I know it wasn't you, I said. You're just here as the executioner. Who fired me? The president-elect? Because, Steve, if you don't tell me who it is, I'm going to say it was you. That, right there, is where Steve Bannon blinked. In the decade and a half I've known Donald Trump, I've seen in him many of the qualities that have defined America's leaders through the years. He knows who he is and what he believes in. He has a keen understanding of what regular people are feeling. He commands extraordinary loyalty from his supporters and has unique communication skills. He is utterly fearless. Donald doesn't care who he angers or how things used to be. He just doesn't. The harsher the attacks on him, the more energized he gets. This is a man who wakes up every morning with unparalleled self-confidence. But he also has deficits, significant gaps in his experience and personality that, if left unchecked, will inevitably hobble him. All presidents have these, even the greatest ones, though Donald's are uniquely his. He acts and speaks on impulse. He doesn't always grasp the inner workings of government, which are different from the intricacies of the business world. And he trusts people he shouldn't, including some of the people who are closest to him. That is why, as he prepared to take the oath of office, Donald so urgently needed the right people around him and a solid structure in place. Many of the problems he would go on to face during his first 2 years in office were caused, at least in part, by the absence of that foundation. The infighting and chaos in the White House. The failure to get important parts of his agenda through Congress. The revolving door of deeply flawed individuals. Amateurs, grifters, weaklings, convicted and unconvicted felons, who were hustled into jobs they were never suited for, sometimes seemingly without so much as a background check via Google or Wikipedia. Here are the facts of the Trump transition. The day after Trump was elected, he was handed a detailed roadmap that would have avoided many of these pitfalls and launched him on a far more promising path. A plan that was fully consistent with his values, his campaign promises, and his publicly stated views. But that plan was thrown in the trash. Literally. All 30 binders were tossed in a Trump Tower dumpster, never to be seen again. Steve Bannon, Rick Dearborn, Jared Kushner, and others, for their own selfish reasons, got rid of the guidance that would have made their candidate an immensely more effective president and would have saved him an awful lot of heart.